All right, so, we're always diving into some new tool or tech or, whatever the latest thing is. And this one you send over is Chat2DB. And I gotta say, looking at the stuff you sent, it seems,
It's pretty cool, yeah.
yeah, it's pretty wild. It's definitely more than just like another database tool. It feels like something much bigger, potentially.
Yeah, and the stuff you sent over, like that quick start guide, I mean, it jumps right out at you. The AI is like the core of it. It's not just like, oh, a little AI sprinkled on top like this AIGC thing is.
Right, artificial intelligence generation
Yeah,
code.
like it's the heart of the whole thing. And so you can like actually talk to your database in plain English.
It's like it understands SQL but can also speak our language too.
Exactly. Like you don't need to be a SQL expert to like get answers from your data or even, build reports.
Which is huge, right? Like that could really change who can work with data.
Yeah, totally. And so, in this deep dive, what we really want to do is like dig into Chat2DB, see what it can do, how it works, and like how, you listening could actually use it in your work.
Yeah, exactly. So starting with the basics, how do you even get started with this thing?
So there's a couple of ways to get going. You can either use their webpage, like just jump right in at app.chat2db.ai, which is super convenient, or download the client from chat2db.a download.
So the webpage, I guess, is good for just like checking it out. But when would you actually want to download the whole client application?
Well, the guide really emphasizes like the client is better if you've got private databases, the things that aren't just out there on the public internet, or if you want to work with data that's like stored locally on your machine without having to set up some kind of proxy.
Right. So for security reasons, or maybe just convenience if your data is already local.
Exactly. And it seems like they've got versions for pretty much every operating system too, like Windows, Mac, Linux. So
Okay, so let's say we go the download route. What's the first thing we got to do to get this thing installed?
step one is literally client download. Just like it sounds, head over to Chat2DB at Aheon, grab the version that matches your computer. Super straightforward.
Okay, downloaded it. Now what?
Now it's time to sign up or log in, which is step two. And the nice thing is they give you a free trial, 30 days, 200 free AI trials you can connect to a bunch of different databases. So it's,
That's pretty generous. Yeah, you can really get a feel for it before committing.
yeah, for sure. And after that 30 days, if you want to keep using it, the guide points you to their subscription plan. So it seems like a subscription service after that initial trial period.
Makes sense. All right, so I'm ready to sign up. I noticed there are like a bunch of different ways to log in.
Yeah, they've got 4 options. You can use your Google account, your GitHub account, get an email verification code, or just use your email and a password.
Right.
So pretty flexible.
Nice. Okay, so I'm logged in now. What's the first like real hurdle to actually start using this thing with my data?
So step 3 is all about connecting to your database. And that's like the most fundamental thing you got to do. You have to basically introduce Chat2DB to your database. Tell it where to find it, how to get in.
Okay, and how do you actually do that?
Usually there's like a database connection option somewhere in the left-hand menu. And if you click that, you'll probably see a button that says New Connection somewhere down there on the left. And when you hit that, it'll show you this big list of different types of databases you can connect to.
And it seems like they support a ton of different databases.
Oh, yeah. They list a whole bunch, like MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL. Actually, they list SQL Server twice. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But also DB2, Oracle Ocean Base, ClickHouse, Redis, H2, SeqSquad, Daemon, even one from the Renmin University of Finance. So it seems like they've got pretty much everything covered.
So once you've picked your database, what info do you need to actually make the connection?
All right, so there's a bunch of fields they want you to fill out, and it's all detailed in this section called Fill in the Database Connection Information. The first one is just name, so something that helps you remember which connection is which. Then there's this end field, which is for like categorizing the connect, like is it a testing connection or a production connection?
Oh, that's smart. So you don't accidentally mess with your live data.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, you need the host, which is, the network address of your database server, either an IP address or a domain name. And then the port number that the database server is listening on. And for MySQL, they even remind you that the default port is 3306.
Okay, so that's the basic location stuff. Now, what about like security credentials?
So there's authentication where you tell it how you're going to prove you're allowed to connect to the database. Usually that's going to be with a username and password. But some databases might let you connect without any authentication. And if you do use a username and password, then you got to fill in your user and password in the next 2 fields.
Makes sense. Are there any other details they need?
Yeah, there's a few more. So database is optional. You can say which specific database you want to connect to, or you could leave it blank and it'll just connect to the default one for that server. And then there's URL, which is also optional. If you don't give it a specific URL, it'll actually try to build one for you based on the other stuff you've already put in, which is kind of nice.
So it's trying to be helpful and like infer things where it can. What about the actual like technology that lets Chat2DB talk to all these different databases?
Right, so that's where the driver comes in, which is also optional because it'll try to pick the right driver for you based on the database type and URL. But basically, a driver is like a translator that lets Chat2DB speak the specific language that your database understands, but you can manually pick a driver if you need to. And if you do that, then it'll show you any extra configuration options for that specific driver. And then there's this SSH option, which is turned off by default. But if you need to connect to your database through an SSH tunnel, which you often do for security reasons, especially if it's like a remote database, then you can turn that on and configure all your SSH stuff. And then finally, there's this advanced configuration section, which is for like really specific settings that most people probably won't need to mess with.
Okay, so that's a lot of details about the connection, but how do you know if you got it right before you actually start like running queries and potentially messing things up?
Yeah, so step 4 is test connection. There's a big test button. You can't miss it. Usually it's near the save button in the connection setup window. And when you hit that, it tries to connect to your database using all the info you just gave it.
And what happens? Like, what do you see when you click test?
If everything's good, you'll get a nice little message that says success, basically telling you that, yeah, it connected to your database, no problem. But if something's wrong, like maybe you messed up the password or the host address is incorrect, then it'll fail. And it'll give you some kind of error message that hopefully points you in the right direction to fix it. And once you do see that success message, then you can hit save and store your database connection.
All right, we're connected now. The guide mentioned something called AI data collection setup. And given that this is all about AI, it seems kind of important. What's the point of that?
Yeah, so step 5 is set up AI data collection. And they actually highlight it as a major highlight of Chat2DB. And the idea is to basically teach the AI about the structure of your tables. Like, what are the names of the tables? What are the columns in each table? What types of data are in those columns? And that way, when you start asking questions in plain English or you want to create those fancy AI reports, it can actually understand your data and give you good answers.
So it's like giving the AI the schema of your database so it knows what it's working with.
Exactly. And the guide says that after you create a database connection, you'll often get this pop-up window asking if you want to set up AI data collection. And if you click affirm or OK or whatever the button says, then you have to pick the database that you want the AI to learn about, and then it'll show you a list of all the tables in that database. And you can pick which ones you want to include, and then you hit a button that says something like sync to AI data collection, and that's it.
Okay, so it sounds like that's a pretty key step to really unlock the AI features of this thing. So we've connected our database. We've hopefully set up the AI data collection. Now we actually want to start doing stuff with our data. How do we get into that main interface?
So step 6 is all about using Chat2DB for database development.
Yeah.
And there's usually a couple of ways to get into the main interface. You can either double-click on the connection you just created in the connection list, or right-click on it and choose something like Open a New Tab or Enter Database. And once you're in there, you'll see all the usual tools for doing database stuff like browsing tables, adding new ones, deleting existing ones, changing their structure, and of course running queries to see what's in the data.
So all the basic database stuff is there, but let's get back to the AI stuff. Like
Yeah.
one thing that really caught my eye was the AI-powered table creation. How does that work?
So in the data table management section, they talk about both manual and AI-powered table creation. And for the AI approach, they have this thing called Table Copilot. So you basically click on Table Copilot, and then you describe the table you want in plain English, like what you want to name the table and what you want to name the columns and what kind of data each column should hold. And when you're done, you just execute the command, and the AI will generate the actual SQL code to create that table in your database.
So you just like describe what you want and it builds the table for you. That's wild. What about the old school way of creating tables?
Yeah, and they walk through the manual process too. So you got to fill out a bunch of stuff for the table itself, like table name, comment, character set, engine increment value. And then for each column, you have to specify the column, name the data type, the size, whether it can be null if it's a key and a comment. And then you can also define indexes, which helps speed up queries. And you got to get those in name, pick the columns, the type, and add a comment if you want. So as you can see, the AI way is a lot faster, especially if you're just creating basic tables.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it. Now, what about getting data out of those tables? How does querying work and how does AI come into play?
So if you want to write regular SQL queries, you can usually right-click on a database or a group of tables or even a specific table and choose Open Query Console or something like that. And they'll give you that familiar interface where you can type your SQL and run it.
Hmm.
But the really cool thing is the AI-powered querying. They say you could just type a forward/fabrid in the query console, and that tells Chat2DB that you want to use natural language. So then you just type your question in plain English, like show me the top 10 customers by order value or whatever you want to know. And the key thing is to make sure you've selected the right AI data set that you created earlier so it understands the context of your database, and then it'll analyze your question and spit out the actual SQL query for you, which you can then run to get your results.
That's crazy powerful. Imagine just being able to ask your database questions in plain English and get real answers. What about visualizations? Does Chat2DB have anything for like data analysis and building dashboards?
Yeah, step 7 is all about using Chat2DB for data analysis. And they walk you through how to create dashboards. So you usually find a dashboard option somewhere on the left. And if you click that, you'll probably see new dashboard button, and then it'll ask you to give your report a name. And you can add a description if you want. And then you have two main ways to create charts. You can either let the AI do it, or you can manually build them yourself.
Okay, let's start with the AI magic. How do you make a chart with AI?
So you're going to look for a button that says AI chart. And when you click that, it'll probably give you a text box where you can describe the chart or report you want in plain English, kind of like when you're querying the data with AI. And again, make sure you've selected the right AI data collection that have the data you want to visualize. And then Chat2DB will take a crack at building a chart for you based on what you asked for.
Wow, so you can just like tell it what you want to see and it'll try to visualize it. That's awesome. But what if you need more control over the chart? Like you want a specific type of chart, or you need to show very specific data points. What about manual chart creation?
Right. So for that, you'll usually click on something that says new chart, and then you go to data configuration, and there you pick the database you want to pull data from, and then you write an actual SQL query to get the exact data you need for your chart. And once you've got your data, you hit back to chart, and that takes you to the chart customization area. And there you can choose what kind of chart you want, like a bar, chart line, chart, pie chart, whatever. And then you tell it which columns from your query should be used for the different parts of the chart, like the axes, the values, the segments of the pie chart, all that stuff. And you can usually customize the colors and labels and all that too. And then when you're happy with how it looks, you hit save and it adds the chart to your dashboard.
Okay, so you've got options. You can either go the fast AI route or get really specific with the manual configuration. Seems pretty flexible.
Yeah, definitely. And so this whole deep dive, based on the quick start guide, it really gives you a good sense of what Chat2DB can do from that initial setup, connecting to your database, to using the AI for querying and visualization. It's got a lot of cool features.
And it really does seem like it could speed things up a lot and make data analysis accessible to more people, even if they're not SQL experts.
For sure. That ability to just use natural language to work with data, that's a big deal.
So, thinking about all the ways Chat2DB uses AI, like writing SQL for you, even creating tables for you, generating reports and building visualizations. I mean, it really makes you wonder how this kind of tool could change how you, listener, interact with and understand data in your own work or even in your personal projects, right? Like it could be a game changer in terms of making data analysis something that anyone can do. And, who knows what kind of insights people will uncover when they have these powerful tools at their fingertips. So we definitely encourage you to check out the web version or download the client and give it a try, see how it fits into your own data journey. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Absolutely. It's definitely worth exploring.
See you next time.